Eazy-E left us a legacy that continues to live on and inspire new generations of rappers. His powerful lyrics, telling stories about real life and social issues, remain relevant to this day. He is the godfather and founder of styles such as gangster rap and G-funk, and his work made a massive contribution to the culture, continuing to please fans even now. Almost 20 years ago, the musician left this world. He didn't die from a bullet, it was AIDS, which is rather strange considering who this man was. It's not usually talked about, but some representatives of gangster music pass away from this disease. However, the death of Eazy-E still remains a very mysterious event. Some are convinced that the hip-hop legend might have been killed, and even the founder of Death Row Records, Suge Knight, could have been involved. In this video, we'll touch on the rapper's biography, as well as tell in detail about the last days of his life. So, let's get started. Here's one of the media headlines from March 16, 1995. The most famous hardcore rapper who glorified debauchery, crime, and violence has been hospitalized, diagnosis AIDS. He himself says he has no idea how he got infected. The veil of mystery has long been lifted. That rapper was Eazy-E, a native of Compton, founder of Ruthless Records, co-founder of N.W.A, the one who discovered Bone Thugs-n-Harmony and brought millions of listeners to a West Coast product called gangster rap. To those who knew him well, he was Eric Wright, his real name, father of 9 children, lover of women, a guy with a thick wallet whose contents he generously shared with everyone, whether distant relatives, friends, or just random acquaintances. At the same time, Eazy-E's fate is a vivid example of how AIDS can destroy an ordinary guy. The illness struck Eazy-E literally within a few days. On February 16, he was working at the Audio Archivement studio in Torrance, California. Suddenly, he began wheezing and felt like he was about to collapse from weakness. Eazy-E's bodyguards, twins Jacob and John Tovio, took him to the nearest hospital, N.W.A Community Hospital, where he had to stay for several days. On the 24th, he was again in the hospital, this time at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. On March 1, he was diagnosed AIDS, and less than a month later, on March 26, he was gone. Eazy-E was 31 years old. He didn't die like other rappers, so some believe that he was quickly forgotten. So it turns out that because of such a death, Eazy-E is less significant than Biggie Smalls or Tupac, says longtime friend of Eric, DJ KJ Quick. When people remember his death, it sounds something like, oh, he died of AIDS, that was his fault, but the consequences of the tragedy go much deeper. His story is at the center of a terrifying portrait of the African-American community shaken by the blow of AIDS. But let's talk about who Eazy-E was and why his name definitely belongs alongside Tupac and Biggie. Eric Wright was born on September 7, 1963 into a middle-class black family in the city of Compton, California. And it seems like he was sent by a higher power to glorify this place, if not the whole world, then at least all of America. In his teenage years, Eric and his friends were involved in crime, but becoming a hardened gangster wasn't part of his future plans. As soon as he finished school, he was drawn to the music business. Friends of the musician say that the criminal image was largely artificially created to survive in the environment he grew up in. In reality, Eric only sold light substances and had nothing to do with robberies or murders. After his cousin was killed in a gang altercation, Eazy-E decided to change his life. At 15, he recorded rap for the first time in his parents' garage, dreaming of conquering the musical Olympus. In 1985, under the pseudonym Eazy-E, he opened his own label, Ruthless Records, with money saved from selling illegal substances, and turned it into a forge of West Coast rap talent. In the beginning, all the records of the musicians recorded there were produced mostly manually in a modest garage facility. Now, many agree that without Eazy-E's help and without the existence of Ruthless Records, West Coast rap could never have reached those massive sales numbers in America and the notorious global fame it still holds today. Dreams began to come true in 1987 when Eric Wright assembled a team, the likes of which hip-hop has never seen in terms of influence. Alongside Eazy-E, Arabian Prince, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, MC Ren and DJ Yella joined, together forming the group N.W.A. During this period, Ruthless Records released the compilation N.W.A and the Posse. The following year, their hit album Straight Outta Compton was released. We'll talk in more detail about it a bit later. The first solo album in Eazy-E's discography came out in 1988. It included 12 tracks that sparked the creation of new genres, including gangster rap. The album was well received by American listeners, who bought over 2.5 million copies.
Eazy-E, I got bitches galore. You might have a lot of bitches, but I got much more.
Why did Eazy-E and his team become so popular in just a few years? It's unlikely these oppositionists were the first to shine a light on the pressing issues of the ghetto to modern society. Rather, they were the first to take a firm stance, to speak only the truth. Here's how the rapper himself explained the philosophy of his work.
Basically, gangster rap, I guess it's like telling the real and not holding back, giving up, the reality from the street point of view. And like by us being from the streets, we know how to report it. I tell, basically what's going on. Say rap promotes violence and gangster rap does this and everything else. And I don't think gangster rap promotes violence at all. I think it's the person, A rap song doesn't make a person go out and shoot people or go out and rape people and everything else. I think it's the person.
To change the mindset of the mature black population of at least the West Coast, N.W.A. alone wasn't enough, and honestly, it's unlikely it's possible to completely overhaul the consciousness of a fully grown person. But the youth, that's a different story. If someone ever manages to catch their issues and ideals, that will be a powerful force in the hands and voice of a musician. And N.W.A. did that brilliantly. Remember their heavy hit against the police in Fuck the Police? The Los Angeles police, who were partly the subject of the song, really did go overboard and treated black teens on the streets with serious prejudice. And not just Fuck the Police, the entire Straight Outta Compton album boiled over with the voice of humiliated black youth.
If thrown in jail, we can go toe-to-toe in the middle of a cell. Fucking with me.
It's no surprise that on August 1, 1989, N.W.A. received a letter from the FBI regarding the explicit content of that album, allegedly addressing non-existent problems. Gaining massive support among black communities, N.W.A. clearly scared the authorities. The scandals only played into the rappers' hands, as their records began enjoying phenomenal success, and the group's earnings in that same 1989 reached very decent six-figure sums. Straight Outta Compton was created in just a few weeks for $12,000 reportedly, and when it was released on August 8, 1988, it gradually became a hit without traditional support from the music industry, going gold in April and platinum by July the next year as its popularity surged. Later, it was included in Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and decades later it had a second life after its film adaptation about N.W.A., also called Straight Outta Compton, was released in 2015, achieving blockbuster success. Interestingly, the group could have disbanded even before the release of that legendary album. At the end of the group's 1987 fall tour, Ice Cube told the group he was planning to go to college. At the time, all N.W.A. had released was the 12-inch Panic Zone. The rap game didn't seem too solid at the time, so I decided to move on and get an education, Cube once said, according to the biography Attitude. The rapper would have earned a degree in architectural drafting and design from the Phoenix Institute of Technology in Arizona. But he didn't abandon the group entirely. Before returning, in September 1988, he wrote 2 new songs for Eazy-E's solo debut, Easy Does It. Dr. Dre recalled a story when he and Eazy-E were goofing around shooting paintballs at people waiting for the bus. The cops caught us and we ended up face down on the highway with guns pointed at us, Dre recalled in 2007, according to the Irish Examiner. We were like, what the hell is this? Then we went to the studio and made the song Fuck the Police. Ice Cube, who wrote the lyrics with Ren, remembers it as a collective social expression. At the time, Daryl Gates, who was the chief of police in Los Angeles, declared war on gangs. Cube told Rolling Stone in 2015, "The gang war to me was a politically correct way to say war on anyone they considered a gang member. So the way we dressed, the way we looked, and where we were from, you could mistake any good kid for a gang member. So it was just too much to tolerate being under that kind of occupation force that was abusive. Just enough is enough. Our music was our only weapon, non-violent protest."
Other colors, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority.
After the FBI sent its infamous letter to the group in response to Fuck the Police, stating that the group was encouraging violence and disrespect for law enforcement officers, police refused to provide security when the group went on tour. Their contract prohibited them from performing Fuck the Police and Straight Outta Compton, according to the book Welcome to Death Row, but they decided to do it anyway on the last day of the tour in Detroit, which led to undercover police storming the stage. Since no member of the group had any warrants, the authorities let N.W.A. go. After the album's success, unfortunately, the group's days were numbered. That was when the first disagreements within the group started. Ice Cube left the group right after the release of their second album for that reason. With the arrival of Jerry Heller, producer and director of Ruthless Records, into the group's management, open conflicts between members began. A particularly intense scandal broke out between Eazy-E and Dr. Dre. Heller began favoring Eazy-E over the others, which sparked the feud. Dr. Dre demanded to break his contract with Eric's label but was refused. During the conflict and legal disputes, Wright received threats against his family and let the artist go. But the confrontation between the musicians didn't end there. The former label member soon released the track Fuck Wit Dre Day, dissing Eazy-E. In response, Eazy-E recorded an entire mini-album where he tore into not only Dr. Dre but also Snoop Dogg.
This is a real life jack in progress. Nigga, give up your shit or take 2 to the chest.
Here's what Wright said about his former friend and colleague in an interview later.
You could diss me all you want, but I'm gonna get paid. Cause that's why I say Dre Day is only Eazy's payday. And that's real.
Are you still friends with your group?
A couple of them. Ice Cube, MC Ren, and Yella.
Okay, what about the other one?
Who? Dr. Dre?
Yeah.
He's got a song I call G-Thing.
I figured G stuff come from the concrete, and that's the streets, which he was never from the streets.
Motherfucker Dre, motherfucker Snoop, motherfucker Death Row.
All this led to a diss war between the two labels, Death Row and Ruthless Records. According to rapper BG Knockout, former bodyguard and future founder of Death Row, Suge Knight, set up an ambush on Eazy-E during a hotel meeting planned with his artist Dr. Dre. Suge Knight showed up with his goons, armed with bats and guns pointed at Eric. They demanded Eric sign some papers, effectively releasing Dr. Dre and DOC from his label so they could move to Death Row. As Knockout said, Eric gave a fake signature, and after doing some paperwork tricks, he managed to get a fifth of Dre's profits, something he mentioned in interviews a couple times. This made Death Row furious. In addition, according to Knockout, members of Death Row and Ruthless, many of whom were gang members, met in real life, often armed, and faced each other in actual street warfare. Once, according to BG Knockout, a small group from Ruthless ran into Death Row at an award show, where Death Row had 300 allied members. Also Toka, an artist from Ruthless, stated that Death Row members once tried to provoke Eric, but when Toka, a member of the Mexican gang Surenjos, showed up with a large group of Mexicans ready for anything, Death Row's people got in their cars and left the scene. The conflict between Death Row and Ruthless Records was so deep and irreconcilable that to this day some blame Suge Knight for Eazy-E's death.
Suge tried to destroy my record company with the help of others, Dre. So right now we're getting everything back together and we finna come out, fully loaded.
So how did it happen that Eazy-E died so early and from such a terrible disease? Early in the morning on March 1, Eric was getting ready to call his beloved and tell her that he had been diagnosed with AIDS. He intended to tell Tomica Woods, the mother of their one-year-old son Dominic, that the doctor had just reported a positive HIV test and that possibly Tomica and their future second child might also be infected. However, Eric got very nervous, mumbled something, and dropped the phone. Then the doctor picked up the receiver himself and told her everything. Later, Tomica and Dominic took HIV tests, which turned out negative. The only thing spinning in the girl's mind was, quote, who could Eric have gotten infected from? She had already suspected that he had other women, but tried not to pay much attention to it. It didn't really affect our family, Tomica says. No hysterical phone calls, no diseases. I thought, fine, to hell with it, let it be. And although Tomica treated all of Eric's 4-hour gas station trips with tolerance, she couldn't calmly watch the stream of women entering his hospital room. The rapper was also afraid people would think he was gay, and he had just begun to regain public trust after the troubles in the early 90s. But how did the media and fans find out? At first, the official explanation for Eric's absence was the artist's rehabilitation in the hospital at the doctor's insistence. This was announced on his weekly show Ruthless Radio Show, which aired on Los Angeles radio. However, Eric never managed to refute the rumors that he had contracted the virus as a result of homosexual contact. Fortunately, Eric's mother Kathy Wright learned about her son's illness not from rumors. According to Tomica, Eric did gather the courage to tell her himself, just a couple of days after he found out. It's hard to say how Kathy reacted. She refused an interview, saying only, I don't want to cry again. Eric's friends and acquaintances clearly remember how they found out about his trouble. Ice Cube heard the news from a friend whose mother worked at Cedars-Sinai Hospital and, breaking the rules, told her son about Eazy's diagnosis. DJ Quick said he overheard someone's conversation on a plane. Here's the quote, I'm a fan of eavesdropping on what people talk about. Back then, on the plane, the conversation was about how Eazy really had AIDS. My cell phone was off, and when we landed at the Los Angeles airport, a friend came up to me and confirmed what I had heard on the plane. I remember feeling like my world was collapsing. Crazy Bone was in Cleveland, where he was planning to spend his first decent paycheck when a girlfriend called and told him rumors about Eric's illness, and although he didn't believe it, he still reached out to other members of Bone Thugs. Lazy was more than skeptical about the news. I said all that was bullshit. A few days later, the rumors reached Eric's hospital room. Have you heard what they're saying about me? He asked his bodyguards. Since Jacob didn't believe that the man he'd protected for 6 years had AIDS, he replied, dude, all those rumors are being spread by your haters. When you recover, you'll tell them all to kiss your ass on your radio show. But that never happened. All of it was driving Eric crazy, but he never lost control. In those days, he didn't show what he was really feeling, remembers his brother Kenneth. He just worked, discussing business matters. Despite his outward calm, the godfather of gangster rap finally broke down. He had a nervous breakdown. Here's a quote from a close person. He was never very talkative with those who visited him. Most likely he was tying up loose ends. But when everyone left, he collapsed onto the bed and broke down crying. The attending doctor advised Eric to undergo a procedure to drain fluid from his inflamed lungs. Only after that would it be possible to take a lung tissue sample and stop the infection that was spreading throughout his body. The chances of Eric surviving the procedure were slim, but he went for it. Looking back, people who were with him in those days recall that Eric already seemed to be fading. He didn't even touch the food his mother brought from home, leaving it next to untouched hospital trays. He wouldn't allow the sheets to be changed. In room 5105, he lay motionless with the curtains drawn. It seemed like the nurses were tending to an empty room. Realizing he wouldn't pull through, Eazy suddenly decided to marry Tomoka and transfer to her his authority over Ruthless Records. In all conversations about a possible wedding, Tomoka, as if predicting the future, insisted on a very modest ceremony, while Eric dreamed of a wedding in the style of Al Capone. Her in a lavish wedding dress, him in a tuxedo, a crowd of guests. They couldn't have imagined that they would marry on March 22, 1995 in a sterile hospital room, and the only guests would be Eric's relatives, security, doctors, and a lawyer. Naturally, it didn't even occur to them that the groom would be so weak that he wouldn't be able to stand. After the wedding, Eric's family decided that his illness could no longer be kept from the public. Rumors about his condition had spread beyond Compton, and false information could only do harm. With his mother's help, Eric drafted a statement that his lawyer read on March 16 in Hollywood. Here is a quote from it. "I'm not the kind of guy who likes to preach, but I feel like it's time to clear things up, because I know there are people who care about me who are worried hearing all that nonsense being said right now. I'm saying this not to gain sympathy, I just feel that thousands of my supporters and fans, young people, should know the truth about AIDS. Last week I felt it firsthand. AIDS can affect any of you. It doesn't care about skin color or social status. So what happened after everyone found out? The hospital phones wouldn't stop ringing. Everyone called, hysterical fans, well-wishers, reporters, former lovers, and anonymous people making death threats. Eric had to disconnect the phone in his room and remove the batteries from his pager. Eric's brother Kenneth recalls, quote, "After it went public, the situation just spiraled out of control. I remember one lady, dressed as a nurse, snuck into the room. She wanted to finish Eric off. The family had to hire security from one of the gangs and replace the police officers guarding Eric with them. Disputes also began between the women who had children by Eric. After all the treatment attempts and fighting for life, he died on March 26. What were the consequences after Eazy-E's death? First of all, it's worth noting that Eric died very quickly and none of his women or children were found to have the virus. Doubts arose as to whether he really had AIDS. Many, including Tomoka, do not believe it. There are several theories as to why things turned out this way. The rapper's brother Kenneth, who studied the development of HIV into AIDS, said this, quote, "They said he had pneumonia. I knew his lungs were damaged, but it all happened way too fast. If his illness had progressed the way it usually does with AIDS patients, I would have believed it. But it didn't, and he looked great, so the AIDS theory doesn't seem believable to me." His son was convinced that his father was killed because of his overly successful career. Quote, "Some people just couldn't accept that a black guy made it that big. I think he was killed." A theory from one close insider was even more sensational. There's an opinion that Eric was killed by Jerry Heller. Quote, "Eric used to say that Heller was mafia connected and was draining all his money, so he didn't want to deal with him anymore. Eventually they parted ways, but you know, the mafia doesn't forgive that. If you try to break away from them, they just eliminate you. Maybe now I'm in danger too, but someone had to speak about it." After Eazy-E's death, Heller tried to sue his widow for rights to Ruthless Records. He managed to get large percentages of the company's profits. However, Heller's mafia ties and involvement in Eric's death were never investigated. He refuses to comment on this theory. There are also those who believe that Eazy-E was killed by opponents from Death Row Records. In 2003, Suge Knight appeared on the Jimmy Kimmel live show where they discussed whether it was possible to kill a person using blood infected with AIDS.
Why the bulletproof vest?
Oh, it's not. Oh, no, that's just, it's the new style. You've been in the can for a while. This is what everybody, that's what all the talk show hosts are wearing.
This is a new thing, right?
Yeah.
See, if somebody gonna do something about it, see, technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they call, they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An Eazy-E thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no.
In short, Suge Knight said on live TV that a person can be deliberately infected with HIV through injection, and that this is exactly what happened to Eazy-E. Dr. Lawrence Altshuler stated that the method of killing a person described by Suge Knight is indeed realistic. If someone wants to infect another person with AIDS, they can do it using a needle, said Dr. Altshuler, director of an oncology center, in an interview. If a person is HIV positive and used a needle, then that needle can infect a healthy person. However, the doctor also noted that even if someone tries to deliberately infect another with HIV, which can progress to AIDS, that doesn't mean the result will meet expectations. In general today, this is no more than a conspiracy theory, yet many still blame Suge Knight for the death of the hip-hop legend. But there are other versions too. In 2019, the well-known hip-hop media platform Vlad TV posted that, quote, "About 60% of people believe that Suge Knight poisoned Eazy-E through blood infected with AIDS, thus summarizing the results of a Twitter poll. The late rapper's daughter, Erin Wright, better known as Remarkable, commented on the post, stating that Suge was not involved in her father's death and that he was murdered. Here are her words: "My father was killed by people with more power." Earlier, Vlad TV posted a memorial photo of Eazy-E, under which they shared their opinion about AIDS, urging people to be cautious, use condoms, get tested for HIV. Erin Wright expressed her dissatisfaction in a video on her Instagram page, saying that Vlad TV knows her father was murdered because they asked her family about it. But this view that he was killed by some powerful individuals still remains marginal. Eazy-E went down in history as the godfather of gangster rap. Reed Shaheem from MTV called Eazy a rap pioneer. Critics often refer to him as a legend. Even back when it became known that the rapper was seriously ill, many magazines covered the event. After Eazy-E's death, books and movies were released about him, and in Compton, Eazy-E Day was established. All his albums made it into the Billboard 200, and many of his singles also hit the charts. Here's how his influence is described by his colleague and comrade, Ice Cube.
Look at how people dressed before Eazy-E and then how people start dressing after Eazy. Right. You know, that he brought in all the baggy clothes and all that crazy stuff. And if you look at the 90s, you know, everybody's clothes was big. But that's from Eazy-E. If you look at how he wore his clothes and then how hip hop started to evolve, it's after his pattern. You know, we wore it, but every now and then he wore it every day. Yeah. So it's just a thing where, you know, that dude was super influential. Everybody wanted to be like Eazy-E at the time, or N.W.A.
And here's what younger artists like Kendrick Lamar think.
The legendary, the late great Eric Eazy-E Wright, true mastermind, a businessman, an incredible entertainer. His persona was unmatched. His confidence spoke with abundance. His high-pitched tone spoke to nations around the world, y'all. He is the gatekeeper of reality rap. He's the reason why I'm proud to stand on the stage and rep Compton. Express yourself. I said fuck the police, express yourself. Boyz-n-the-Hood. These are the records that made LA known all across the world, you dig that? It was dubbed gangster rap. But what it was for me, it was an intimate look at what was actually happening in our community in Los Angeles, and in Compton in particular.
More than 3,000 people attended Eric's funeral.
I'm not looking to blame anyone except myself. I feel that I've got thousands and thousands of young fans that have to learn about what's real when it comes to AIDS. I'd like to turn my own problem into something good that will reach out to all my homeboys and their kin, because I want to save them before it's too late.
The N.W.A twins, the hip-hop legend's bodyguards, were as always by his side. They carried the coffin. Eric Jr. threw the first handful of soil into his father's grave, and so the hip-hop legend Eazy-E left this world.
Pointed my weapon, just as I thought, the fools kept stepping.
That's all for now. What do you think about Eazy-E? Leave your opinion in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. See you!